Bonjour à tous. Hello, everyone. This has been a heartbreaking week for Nova Scotians and for all Canadians. At 2 p.m. Atlantic time, we will observe a minute of silence in honour of Constable Heidi Stevenson and all the victims of the Nova Scotia shooting. I also want to remind everyone that at 7 p.m. Atlantic or 6 p.m. Eastern, a virtual vigil will be held to remember those who were taken from us too soon and support their friends and family during this particularly difficult time. I hope that many of you will join us and wear red today in a show of solidarity. Let's come together to support these communities who suffered immeasurable loss. Let's celebrate the lives of those who left us too soon. Let us remember the families, friends, loved ones whose absence will linger for years and lives. You can find more information at novascotiaremembers.com. La semaine qui se termine a été particulièrement douloureuse pour les gens de la Nouvelle-Écosse et pour tous les Canadiens. À 14 heures, heure des Maritimes, nous observerons une minute de silence pour honorer la mémoire de la gendarme Stevenson et toutes les victimes de la fusillade survenue en Nouvelle-Écosse. Une vigile virtuelle aura lieu à 19 heures des Maritimes ou 18 heures, heure de l'Est, pour célébrer la vie de ceux qui nous ont quittés trop tôt. C'est l'occasion pour nous de montrer aux familles et aux amis des victimes qu'on est là pour eux pendant ces moments incroyablement difficiles. J'espère donc que vous serez nombreux à vous joindre à nous et à porter du rouge en signe de solidarité aujourd'hui. Pour plus d'informations, je vous invite à consulter le site novascotiaremembers.com. Since the beginning of the outbreak, our government has been working with its provincial and territorial partners not only to get through this crisis, but to position our economy to rebound once it's over. And a big part of this work means listening to the concerns of Canadians and making adjustments as we go along. One thing we've heard is that small businesses are having trouble making rent because of COVID-19. If you've had to close up shop because of public health recommendations, if you don't have a lot of money coming in because people aren't spending as much these days, you may be worried about losing your office space or not having a coffee shop to reopen after this crisis. So last week, we said that we're planning on introducing the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. And today, I can announce that we've reached agreements with all provinces and territories to lower rent by 75% for small businesses that have been strongly affected by COVID-19 for April, May, and June. The government will cover 50% of that reduction, with the property owner covering the rest. If you are a small business that has been strongly affected by COVID-19 and you're paying less than $50,000 per month on rent, you'll be eligible to receive this support. It will also be there for nonprofits and charitable organizations that are struggling right now. We'll also have more to say in the coming days about rent support for larger businesses. La semaine dernière, j'avais annoncé notre intention d'instaurer l'aide d'urgence du Canada pour le loyer commercial. Et aujourd'hui, je peux confirmer que nous avons conclu des ententes avec toutes les provinces et tous les territoires pour baisser de 75% le loyer des petites entreprises qui sont durement touchées par la COVID-19 pour les mois d'avril, mai et juin. Le gouvernement va couvrir 50% de cette réduction, tandis que les propriétaires couvriront le 25%. C'est du soutien qui sera disponible pour les petites entreprises qui sont durement touchées par la COVID-19 et dont le loyer mensuel est inférieur à 50 000 $. Les organismes de bienfaisance et les organismes à but non lucratif seront également admissibles au programme. Et bientôt, nous aurons d'autres nouvelles pour les entreprises plus grandes. Plus tard aujourd'hui, je vais m'entretenir avec les premiers ministres des provinces et des territoires et on a plusieurs choses au programme. Entre autres, on va poursuivre nos conversations concernant la réouverture graduelle de l'économie. Le Canada est un énorme pays et c'est clair que la pandémie n'a pas frappé toutes les régions de la même façon. On est une fédération. Ça veut dire qu'on doit adapter notre réponse aux réalités de chaque province et de chaque territoire. Mais la réouverture de l'économie peu importe la province ou le territoire, devra se faire graduellement pour faire en sorte que les progrès qui ont été réalisés ne soient pas perdus. Il y a un travail de coordination important qui doit se faire à l'échelle nationale. On va donc travailler avec les gouvernements provinciaux et territoriaux pour mettre en place des principes et des recommandations qui assureront la sécurité des gens. Mais je veux être très clair en ce qui concerne la réouverture du pays. Ça n'arrivera pas du jour au lendemain. Ça doit se faire une étape à la fois. Si vous ne voulez pas qu'on recommence à zéro, tout le monde doit continuer d'être vigilant et de suivre les recommandations des experts. Depuis le début de cette crise, on apprend des démarches entreprises par des pays comme la Corée du Sud, le Japon ou le Singapour. Mais on voit dans certains endroits les défis associés à la réouverture. Il faut donc qu'on fasse très attention. Chaque endroit pourrait avoir une approche distincte. Donc, si vous voyez aux nouvelles qu'une autre province prévoit assouplir les règles, vous devez continuer de suivre les directives qui s'appliquent à l'endroit où vous êtes. Sinon, il y a un risque réel de perdre tout le travail qu'on a fait jusqu'à présent. Comme je l'ai dit hier, on est témoin de scènes troublantes dans les résidences pour personnes âgées et les centres de soins de longue durée à travers le pays. C'est inacceptable et notre gouvernement sera là pour aider. Des membres des Forces armées canadiennes seront déployés suite aux demandes officielles du Québec et de l'Ontario, des demandes que le ministre de la Sécurité publique a acceptées. Le travail de reconnaissance est en cours dans ces deux provinces et on est en train de déterminer les besoins à combler et les prochaines étapes à suivre. Les Québécois, les Ontariens et tous les Canadiens peuvent compter sur nous pendant cette crise. On déploie l'armée pour fournir un appui urgent et aider les provinces à reprendre le contrôle de la situation. Mais on sait que ce n'est pas une solution à long terme. On offre aussi des milliards de dollars aux provinces pour bonifier les salaires des travailleurs essentiels et faire en sorte que nos aînés reçoivent les soins qu'ils méritent. As I said yesterday, what we're witnessing in long-term care facilities across the country is extremely troubling. It's unacceptable, and our government will be there to help the provinces. Members of the Canadian Armed Forces will be deployed after the Minister of Public Safety received and approved two formal requests from Ontario and Quebec. Reconnaissance work is underway in both provinces. We're identifying what needs to be done and mapping out next steps. As I've said many times before, we will be there for Quebecers, Ontarians, and all Canadians during this crisis. We're deploying the military to provide emergency support to help provinces regain control of the situation. But we all know that this is only a short-term solution. We're also offering billions of dollars to provinces to top up the pay of essential workers and make sure that elderly Canadians get the support they deserve. Later today, I'll be meeting with the First Ministers to continue our work on supporting Canadians during this time. We're also going to talk about reopening parts of the economy. Canada is a vast country, and some regions have been hit harder than others during this pandemic. We're a federation, so we have to adapt our response to the realities and challenges of each province and territory. But I want to be clear that getting back to normal will not happen overnight. It's going to take time. It won't be as simple or as easy as flipping a switch. It'll require a lot of coordination at the national level, and our government will be there to do that work. We will be working with the provinces and territories to establish principles and guidelines to start reopening the economy safely. Over the coming weeks, you'll hear more talk about reopening, but you need to know we're not out of the woods. It's absolutely critical that everyone continues to follow local public health instructions as we move forward. For now, these instructions are the same for all Canadians. No matter where you live, you should be staying home as much as you possibly can. You should be washing your hands regularly, and you should always keep a safe distance of 2 meters from others. That is the only way for us to make it through together. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va commencer la période de questions au téléphone aujourd'hui. Opérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you. Merci. Première question, Michel Lamarche, TVA Nouvelles, à vous.
Oui, bonjour. D'abord, vous entendre sur ces loyers commerciaux. Il y a déjà des commerçants qui ont indiqué qu'ils fermaient soit leur resto, soit leur boutique. Pouvez-vous nous dire à quel moment l'argent arrivera pour eux et si vous ne pensez pas qu'il aurait fallu agir plus tôt?
On sait à quel point c'est une crise extrêmement difficile sur les petites entreprises, particulièrement des restos, des petites entreprises qui doivent fermer à cause de la COVID-19. C'est pour ça qu'on reconnaît que même avec la subvention salariale, les coûts fixes des entreprises représentent un vrai défi. C'est pour ça qu'on va couvrir le loyer à 75 % pour le mois de avril, mai et juin, et on verra par la suite pour les petites entreprises qui sont les plus durement frappées par la COVID-19. On a mis sur pied déjà un accès au crédit plus facile pour les petites entreprises où ils vont avoir jusqu'à 40 000 $ pour aider avec ces coûts dans l'intérim. Et l'argent pour les appuyer dans leur loyer va arriver le plus tôt possible, mais ça va être rétroactif pour les aider pour le mois d'avril.
En suivi, Michel?
Bien sûr, en suivi, M. Trudeau, j'aimerais vous entendre sur les CHSLD au Québec et les centres de soins de longue durée. Certains auront l'impression qu'hier, vous avez voulu faire la morale aux provinces. Il y a un conseiller du premier ministre du Québec qui vous dit « La solution, elle est simple et connue depuis des années maintenant. Le fédéral devait augmenter les transferts en santé. » Est-ce que vous considérez que cette analyse est juste et est-ce qu'il n'est pas temps d'augmenter ces transferts?
Je pense que tous les Canadiens se posent des questions sur ce qui s'est passé dans les centres d'hébergement long terme, nos centres d'aînés. C'est un constat que nous devons tous faire et effectivement, il va y avoir des questions pour tout le monde, pour tous les paliers de gouvernement sur ce qu'on aurait dû faire et surtout ce qu'on devra faire dans les mois et les années à venir. Effectivement, nous allons faire partie des conversations parce que le fédéral doit faire partie de la solution et on va prendre ces conversations quand ils viendront. Pour l'instant, notre emphase est de passer à travers cette crise actuelle, d'aider les provinces à regagner le contrôle de la situation. On sera là pour aider les Canadiens, on sera là pour aider nos aînés en difficulté. Obviously, all Canadians are asking themselves questions about the situation that has allowed so many of our elders to be so incredibly vulnerable to COVID-19 and related issues. We need to do better, and we will be working with the provinces on ways to move forward. We will, of course, be there to have conversations about increasing supports to the provinces for healthcare. We've seen significant needs on healthcare across the country. We will have those conversations in the future. Right now, our focus is on making sure we're giving all the help we need during this crisis to the provinces and specifically to Canadians right across the country.
Merci. Opérateur, prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question, Catherine Lévesque, La Presse canadienne. À vous.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau. Je veux juste revenir sur les loyers rapidement. Je veux savoir quelle sera la part des responsabilités des provinces et des territoires là, quant à ces paiements. Donc, d'où va venir l'argent, dans quelle proportion et comment est-ce que ça va se faire concrètement?
Pour les petites entreprises qui ont 50 000 $ de loyer par mois ou moins, qui sont très durement touchées par la COVID-19, on va leur permettre de payer seulement 25 % de leur loyer pour avril, mai et juin. Du 75 % qu'eux, ils ne vont pas payer, le propriétaire de l'immeuble couvrira le 25 %, absorbera 25 % et le fédéral et les provinces vont prendre le 50 % qui reste. La proportion divisée entre fédéral et provincial, c'est 75 % pour le fédéral, 25 % pour le provincial. Mais on aura des gens pour expliquer en plus de détails ces annonces dans l'heure qui suit.
Question de suivi, Catherine?
D'accord, très bien. Et puis, sur ces bonus pour les travailleurs essentiels, vous dites que vous offrez des milliards de dollars aux provinces. Or, on sait que le sujet était à l'ordre du jour la semaine dernière lors de votre rencontre là, avec les premiers ministres là, des provinces. En êtes-vous arrivé à une entente et sinon, pourquoi? Qu'est-ce qui bloque?
On a fait du très bon progrès au cours de la dernière semaine avec les provinces. Évidemment, différentes provinces ont des situations extrêmement différentes. On a la réalité au Québec et en Ontario. Le Québec a déjà agi, la Colombie-Britannique a déjà agi d'une certaine façon. Donc, on va être là pour appuyer ce qu'ils sont en train de faire et peut-être accroître ce qu'ils sont en train de faire. D'autres provinces qui font pas face à la même crise, à la même pandémie, à l'intensité de pandémie que d'autres, sont un petit peu incertains de comment ils ont besoin de cette aide et comment l'avoir. Donc, on a travaillé avec eux sur les derniers jours pour trouver une façon d'avancer qui avait de l'allure pour tout le monde. Mais on est là pour aider, pour s'assurer que nos travailleurs essentiels aient l'appui nécessaire pour continuer leur travail. Okay. We have been working over the past week with provinces on topping up the pay for essential workers, particularly those in long-term care facilities. We recognize that they are doing particularly important, they're always particularly important jobs, but they're particularly difficult and complex circumstances right now. But all provinces are in slightly different situations. So a number of provinces want to move forward very quickly. Others had a few questions about how it would apply in their province where the pandemic is hitting less hard, where budgetary constraints are different and choices are different. We are getting very close to having an agreement with all the provinces, and we should be able to move forward soon.
Opérateur, prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Laura Osmond, the Canadian Press. Line open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. I wanted to ask you about the cost-sharing agreement with the provinces for the rent subsidies. Are they sort of set in stone at this point? Are they still being negotiated? And if so, are different provinces making their own deal with the federal government, or will it be consistent across the board?
Those are questions better suited for the more technical briefing a little bit later, but I can tell you that we have worked out this agreement with the provinces, and the program as it is right now is how it is going to unfold.
On follow-up?
Thank you. Some businesses are saying they have no revenue. They can't cover that 25%. And now that they've shut their doors, they don't think they're going to be able to reopen them unless they get full support. Is there more help coming for them? What do you say to those businesses?
This is an extremely difficult situation for Canadians, for businesses right across the country. We recognize that COVID-19 is hitting some people harder than others, some areas harder than others, and unfortunately, this is something that we are grappling with. We are trying to help as many people as possible. The businesses that have no revenue and are unable to make even the 25% rent, well, they still have access to that $10,000 of forgivable loans with a total of $40,000 available from the banks. That $10,000 actually represents an average month's rent for a small business in this country, which means a quarter of that can actually last for 4 months. This is aid that we've given to small businesses, made available without them having to indebt themselves further to try and ensure that we get through this with as many of the small businesses that are the motors of our economy, the principal employers across the country, get through this difficult time and come back strong afterwards.
Merci. Opérateur, dernière question.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Adam Uris, New Brunswick Telegraph. Line open.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for taking my question. New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs says several of the province's employers are struggling to get employees to agree to return to work, suggesting it's a repercussion of the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Are there concerns that Canadians may instead want to stay home and collect benefits and not return to work? And was this thought of when the plan rolled out?
We are facing one of the largest health crises, the largest economic crisis of our lifetime, and Canadians need help. They need help paying their rent. They need help buying groceries. They need help caring for their loved ones. They've lost their paychecks. They've seen themselves very, very anxious about their own health, about their parents' health, about their future. We needed to help Canadians, and we did exactly that. Helping Canadians right across the country get through this pandemic is not just about generosity, it's about making sure that we are able to do the things necessary in every home across the country to be able to keep this country safe and to make sure we have an economy that can rebuild quickly afterwards. This government will help Canadians who need help. Period. Okay. On est en train de vivre une situation sans précédent, une situation extrêmement grave en termes de crise de santé publique, en termes de crise économique. Et les Canadiens, d'un bout à l'autre de ce pays, ont besoin d'aide. Ont besoin d'aide pour payer leur loyer, ont besoin d'aide pour faire leur épicerie, pour s'occuper de leurs enfants ou de leurs parents. On est dans une situation où on doit aider les gens pour pouvoir les permettre de prendre les bonnes décisions et de rester chez eux et d'attendre que cette crise passe. C'est la priorité. C'est qui on est au Canada. On s'entraide. On est là les uns pour les autres. C'est la seule façon qu'on va passer à travers cette crise et avoir une économie qui va revenir après. C'est qui nous sommes d'être là les uns pour les autres.
On follow-up?
Yes, please. Premier Higgs also says he fears that equalization payments that some provinces have come to rely on will be less lucrative in the near future as so-called have provinces struggle more than ever. Can you assure the provinces that they will not see a decline in equalization in the coming years?
Yeah. Equalization has a formula that has long been set, and we will continue to look at ways to ensure that it's working for provinces right across the country. It's important that Canadians in every province receive the services to which they are entitled right across the country. That's what equalization is about, and we support that principle very strongly.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Quand vous regardez ce qui se passe dans les CHSLD en ce moment, est-ce que vous regrettez de ne pas avoir été plus généreux dans les transferts en santé, donnés par exemple aux provinces qu'elles demandaient ce 5 % d'augmentation? Est-ce que vous regrettez de ne pas avoir été plus généreux?
Je pense qu'il faut toujours prendre des réflexions sur les résidences d'aînés qui ne sont pas toujours nécessaires à l'intérieur du système de santé. Peut-être qu'effectivement, on pourrait avoir une discussion sur si nos résidences d'aînés devraient faire partie du système de santé et soit régies sous la loi canadienne sur la santé. Il y a plusieurs suggestions, plusieurs discussions qu'on pourrait avoir dans les mois à venir. Pour l'instant, ma priorité, c'est de m'assurer qu'on est en train d'aider les gens qui souffrent aujourd'hui et demain, et c'est ce qu'on va faire.
Cette approche-là que vous suggérez, pensez-vous que ça pourrait créer de la résistance de la part des provinces, à savoir un empiètement dans leur champ de compétences? Et par ailleurs, si vous êtes pour donner plus d'argent, est-ce que ce serait attaché à des conditions pour vous assurer que l'argent va aux endroits souhaités?
C'est de très bonnes questions et c'est des questions qu'on va se poser en discussion entre province et gouvernement fédéral. On est une fédération qui est là pour s'adapter aux réalités de la situation et du monde dans lequel on vit. Et je sais que nous sommes unis dans notre désir de voir nos citoyens bien servis, de prendre bien soin de nos citoyens. Et c'est exactement ce qu'on va travailler ensemble. Il va y avoir énormément de réflexion et de discussions à avoir par la suite de cette pandémie. Pour l'instant, on est en train de travailler ensemble pour s'assurer qu'on prend soin de tous les Canadiens.
Good morning, Prime Minister Salima Shivji, CBC. I want to go back to what you said about the federal government coordinating the reopening of provinces. You talked about guidelines. What sort of guidelines is your government giving the provinces, and would you ever go so far as to tell a province not to reopen something?
I think we all understand that the gains that we have made in controlling the spread of COVID-19 to this point have come because people have been very, very diligent across the country about staying home, about not working unless it's essential, about not going out unless it's essential, to both protect essential workers and specifically to prevent our health system from getting overloaded. That has been successful. We also have seen that because of that success, we can now talk about gradually or carefully reopening economic activity in certain sectors. But we have to be very, very careful. That's why what we're working on in collaboration with the provinces is a set of principles and elements that should be in place and should be followed as provinces make the decisions on how and what they will reopen, when, and if even. Things like ensuring proper levels of testing across the province and contact tracing, but other things like ensuring workplace safety. If people work in cubicles, if they work in a startup with beanbags, if they work on a shop floor, if they work in a food production facility, what are the measures that need to be put in place to keep them safe? These are principles saying you need to make sure that workplaces that reopen are safe in health norms, but what those actually are, what that will look like, will be up to the provinces and the local jurisdictions to determine. But we need to make sure that as we look at economic reopening, we are grounding ourselves in the principles that'll ensure that we don't allow for further spread or a new spike of COVID-19. And if there are cases that start to resurge, as likely will happen here and there, that we are able to manage, control, and reduce them rapidly.
We got a lot more details on the Nova Scotia shooting this morning and the timeline with the gunman. We do now know that there was a call made to 911 and the RCMP were informed that the gunman was wearing a uniform, RCMP uniform, as well as driving a car that looked like an RCMP car. And yet there was still no emergency alert. Do you see that as a failure on the part of the RCMP?
I think right now we need to be there for the people of Nova Scotia, for the families and communities that are grieving, and give them all the support we can. Part of that support needs to be answering their many, many questions. Questions about what happened during the incident, what happened to their loved ones, but also questions about the police response and what exactly happened and what could have happened differently or better. Those questions are things that we are going to need to answer, and we're going to work very hard to ensure that those questions are answered.
Ian Wood, CTV News. Prime Minister, the Nova Scotia emergency response teams in Halifax and the shootings took place in rural communities across the province. It took over 12 hours to apprehend the shooter, and the RCMP have highlighted that this was a very difficult situation to be in. Are you confident that the RCMP is adequately resourced in rural communities?
I think these are questions that people are going to be asking right now in Nova Scotia, but indeed all across the country. And they're questions that we don't have the answers to yet. We need to understand exactly what happened, understand how the response was, understand where the response could have been better with different resources or different protocols in place, and ensure that, as from any tragedy of this scale, we learn and we improve to make sure that it never happens again.
Many of the financial aid measures that have been announced so far, whether they be personal or for business, have only been committed at this point through June, but with no end of the restrictions being loosened. You yourself just said earlier that we're not out of the woods yet. Should people and businesses expect those aid measures to be extended, or will they be on their own come the summer?
As we've seen from countries around the world, there is a lot of reflection on how we reopen the economy, how it happens gradually, whether there is a scaling down of certain measures, whether certain measures need to be continued fully for many more months. These are reflections that we will, of course, engage in with businesses, with Canadians over the coming months as we look at careful reopening, as we continue to remain closed and vigilant in other areas. The situation is ongoing, and as we have been from the very beginning, we will adjust and adapt to what we see actually happening. We will be there to support Canadians in the right way, in both ensuring that we get through this health crisis and ensuring that we come back as strongly in terms of the economy as we possibly can. But the only way to be able to do that is to make sure that for now and for the coming weeks, we remain extremely vigilant and we keep up with the social distancing rules.
Brian Mullen, Global News. Prime Minister, following up on some of the previous questions, some businesses say the rent relief announcement is too little too late and they've already had to close. How concerned are you that the long-term impact of this shutdown could be permanent for some sectors of the economy?
We moved forward on access to credit for small businesses quite quickly. We tried to ensure that through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the wage subsidy, that there be responses to businesses and to workers as quickly as possible to allow them to continue to pay for their groceries and their rent at home and support their families. We know certain businesses are extremely hard hit, and that's why the access to credit and the support for the rent is going to be important. But we also see that this is the greatest economic impact and event of our lifetimes, and it is going to be extremely difficult. Our focus is on recognizing that, first of all, our economy and our businesses were in excellent shape before. The services that were needed, the activities we had as a country were going very, very well. This is an event that put us into deep freeze, put us into hibernation, as it were, and everyone had to stop and hold while we let this wave of COVID pass through. And our ability to hold well depends on many things, but including government's ability to support people, to demonstrate that we will be there to make sure that as many as possible of our businesses will be able to bounce back afterwards. We are working to try and get help out to as many people as possible. Some sectors are more hard hit than others, but we know at the end of this, people will need to travel for work, for pleasure. People will need to go to restaurants. People will need to become tourists again in different places across the country and around the world. There are businesses that are hardest hit now who will be able to restart later, and that is our focus on trying to get through this moment of hibernation, which Canadians are doing quite well, as you would imagine.
And a follow-up question about violence against women in rural areas. This has long been an issue looking back at the Renfrew County massacre in 2015, which left 3 women dead, and this recent mass shooting. What can the federal government do to ensure the safety of women in rural, remote areas who are at risk of violence?
We have made significant investments over the past years in shelters for victims of domestic violence, of shelters of women facing gender-based violence. We've moved forward with a gender-based violence strategy. We are looking at stronger gun control measures that will include things like red flag laws that will give people the capacity not just to remove guns but to prevent people from acquiring new guns if there are issues around domestic violence. But we recognize that there is so much more to do. And that is why, as a government and as Canadians, we need to continually pledge ourselves to be allies and solutions in the fight against gender-based violence.
Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui m'a fait la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.
Merci tout le monde.